But first, I'd like to just emphasize that the use of deliberate heat exposure can be a very powerful way to improve health and longevity. There's a wonderful study on this that was published in 2018 that includes a lot of data from a lot of participants in a lot of different conditions. For instance, people that only did sauna once versus 2 to 3 times a week versus 4 to 7 times a week, and so on, and compares all those. The title of the study is Sauna Bathing is Associated with Reduced Cardiovascular Mortality and Improves Risk Prediction in Men and Women, a prospective cohort study. This is one of several papers that clearly demonstrate that regular use of sauna or other forms of deliberate heat exposure can reduce mortality to cardiovascular events, but also to other events, things like stroke and other things that basically can kill us. What I like so much about this and the related studies, and yes, I will provide a link to these in the show notes, is that they involve a lot of participants. So for instance, in this particular paper, which was published in BMC Medicine, they looked at a sample of 1,688 participants who had a mean age of 63, but there was a range of ages around 63, and of whom 51.4% were women, the rest were men. So it's a pretty nicely varied study in terms of the populations that they looked at. And basically what they found was the more often that people do sauna, the better their health is, and the lower the likelihood they will die from some sort of cardiovascular event. Now, what do we mean by sauna? We need to define some of the parameters around sauna, and I promise to provide you some alternative ways to access some of the health benefits that were observed in this and related studies without the need to have a sauna, because I do realize that a lot of people don't have access to sauna. First off, the temperature ranges that were used in this study, and pretty much all the studies that I'm going to talk about, unless I say otherwise, are between 80 degrees Celsius, meaning 176 degrees Fahrenheit, and 100 degrees Celsius, meaning 212 degrees Fahrenheit. So somewhere in that range. How hot should you make the sauna or the environment that you get into should you decide to use these tools? Well, that will depend on your tolerance for heat, how heat adapted you are. Yes, some people are better at sweating than others, and over time, we all get better at sweating, meaning if you go into the sauna more frequently, you become a better sweater. Not a sweater you wear, but the verb, sweater. You get better at sweating, at dumping heat through the loss of water. So it's going to depend. I recommend starting on the lower end of the temperature scale, and if that's too hot for you, that you even lower the temperature further. Now, how long were people exposing themselves to these hot environments? Anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes per session. And as you'll soon learn, very brief periods of just 5 minutes of heat exposure can be a powerful stimulus if the heat exposure is significantly great enough for you, okay? 20 minutes can also be beneficial, but 80 to 100 degrees Celsius, meaning 176 degrees Fahrenheit to 212 degrees Fahrenheit, is the general range that this and most studies use. In this particular study, they compared the effects of people that did sauna once a week, 2 or 3 times per week, or 4 to 7 times per week. And what they saw was really remarkable. What they observed was that people who went into the sauna 2 or 3 times per week were 27% less likely to die of a cardiovascular event than people that went into the sauna just once a week. Again, at the temperature levels and the duration that I talked about earlier. And as you can imagine, the duration and the temperature levels were related. So if people went into very hot environments that were really uncomfortable for them, maybe they only went in for 5 minutes. Whereas if they were more comfortable and heat adapted in a given environment, or their tolerance for heat was just simply higher for whatever reason, well, then they tended to stay in longer. We can take a sort of average of this 5 to 20 minute range. And today we're mainly going to talk about exposures between 10 and 20 minutes at temperatures between, again, 80 degrees and 100 degrees Celsius, 176 degrees Fahrenheit, or 212 degrees Fahrenheit. So these data point to the fact that going in the sauna 2 or 3 times per week is really beneficial and can lower mortality to cardiovascular events. And in fact, the benefits were even greater for people that were going into the sauna 4 to 7 times per week. Those people were 50% less likely to die of a cardiovascular event compared to people that went into the sauna just once a week. So these are really impressive and frankly encouraging studies. Certainly they caught my eye and encouraged me to start using deliberate heat exposure on a regular basis. what's particularly nice about this study and the related study that, again, is linked in the show notes is that they looked at a number of potentially confounding variables, things like whether or not people smoked, things like whether or not people were overweight, whether or not they tended to exercise or not exercise, and they were able to separate out those variables. So the percentages that I described earlier, 27% less likely to die of a cardiovascular event for those that went in the sauna 2 to 3 times a week, and 50% less likely to die of a cardiovascular event for those that went into the sauna 4 times per week as compared to just once a week. Those effects really do seem to be the consequence of the sauna exposure and not some other effect that's correlated with sauna exposure, like going to the gym where people are working out 7 times a week and then also happen to get into the sauna, or quitting smoking right about the same time they adopt a sauna protocol, these sorts of things. And now there have been additional analyses of the use of sauna for improving health, or I should say for offsetting mortality, that have found that it's not just reductions in cardiovascular events, but so-called all-cause mortality. This is kind of medical geek speak for saying how likely are you or somebody to die from a cardiovascular event, but maybe also from some other event, some other health-related event like cancer or something of that sort. And in every case, regular exposure to sauna, starting at about 2 or 3 times per week, all the way up to 7 times per week, greatly improves, meaning statistically significant improvements in longevity in the sense that people are less likely to die of cardiovascular events and other things that kill us.